You are involved in a lawsuit, and one of the procedures you will be involved in is a deposition. Quite simply, a deposition is a question and answer session between you and the opposing attorney. In most circumstances, the deposition will be taken in your attorney's law office, perhaps in the conference room or library of the attorney's office. Sometimes the deposition is conducted in a neutral site. Even though the deposition might appear to be somewhat informal, it is anything but that. A good opposition attorney might attempt to be somewhat disarming, warm, and friendly to you. It is to the opposing attorney's advantage to make you feel comfortable, because that might catch you off guard. The thing that sets a deposition apart from a regular conversation or a friendly question and answer session is that this one is for the record, the court record.
All rise. The district court is now in session. Honorable Sherry Dokes presiding.
From having watched many television shows and movies, you're familiar with the formality of the courtroom. There is a judge, there are the opposing attorneys, the jury panel, and of course, the court reporter with the court reporting machine. This is a very sobering experience, one that not many citizens witness firsthand. The point I'm trying to make here is that the deposition you're about to give is just as sobering and formal as if the testimony were given in any courtroom. First, let's examine the participants in your deposition. There is, of course, your attorney, who is there to protect you and make sure that opposing counsel doesn't get out of bounds with any of his or her questions or conduct. Next is the opposing attorney, who will direct the line of questioning. And finally, the person who takes all the informality out of the meeting, the court reporter. It's the job of the court reporter to transcribe everything uttered in this meeting that will be later introduced in court. That is, should your case actually wind up in court. It will be typed in a booklet form and look like this. It's important to note that in many instances, your case might not wind up in court. Often, cases are settled out of court on the strength of depositions given prior to court. However, in just about all cases, the party's deposition is taken. This is why it's of paramount importance that you be properly prepared. One should always be properly groomed for the occasion. Clothes should be conservative in nature, hair neat, and shoes shine. This applies to both male and female. Your appearance should reflect that you take your case seriously. Always remember, the court reporter is silent. In fact, you may forget the reporter is even present.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, fine. And you?
I'm doing good. Well, actually, I'm running a few minutes behind, but I had a chance to park next to your new... That is your new car, isn't it?
Yes, it's mine.
Oh, my goodness. It looks great.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I'm really loving it.
Where'd you come across that?
Often during the course of deposition, the two attorneys will exchange barbs and engage in friendly banter. This is disarming. Beware. Because no matter how casual the session appears, the court reporter is recording everything. Now let's talk about some rules for giving your deposition. First, tell the truth. You must live with your integrity, and no lawsuit is worth jeopardizing your honor. Second, you have a natural advantage because juries associate with you, because they have the popular misconception that all lawyers try to take advantage of witnesses. So much of what we say is to help you keep this natural advantage.
Sir, how has your company's actions interfered with my client's business?
Your client's business is not being interfered with. It's my construction company, if anything, that's being interfered with here.
The most important rule I can provide you is do not get angry. Don't argue with the opposing attorney. Keep your cool. The best way to blow your case is to let the opposing attorney make you mad. If that happens, juries stop sympathizing with you. Although it may seem unnatural, juries and judges expect witnesses to remain calm during interrogation because they believe truthful people are calm people. You will never win an argument if you get emotional and the other side gets to ask all the questions and all you get to do is answer.
Sir, the contract you signed with my client, is that the standard construction contract?
Yes.
And did the financing required provide for 2 buildings?
Yes, it did.
In this regard, always treat the opposing attorney with respect. It's like the old military saying, you salute the uniform, not the man. Accordingly, call the opposing attorney sir or madam and treat them with the same respect with which you treat your own attorney. There are, of course, some very elementary pitfalls to avoid during your deposition, and we will give you some examples of how to give a good deposition and what can happen if you stub your toe. A deposition is not a conversation between you and the opposing counsel. In a normal conversation, you frequently know what the other party is talking about, even if the words don't make sense. You know it by facial expressions, by the context of the question, or by simple good guessing. That is not what a deposition is about. This may be hard to remember. You are there to answer only the questions of the other lawyer. You are there to answer the questions truthfully, but nothing more. You are not obligated to guess what is meant by the questions or tell the facts that you think the attorney meant to ask. Pretend the opposing attorney is a computer. You have to wait for the question to be typed on the screen before you can answer, and then you answer only what the question asks. Don't volunteer.
Sir, on what date did you sign the contract?
February 18th.
Oh, I see. And when did you sign the other contract with McNeil Construction?
That was December 1st.
Never interrupt the question, even if you surmise the ending. In fact, a good rule to remember is to always wait until the question is completed. Pause, take a deep breath, and then respond.
Sir, on what date did you sign the contract with McNeil Construction?
That was December 1st.
December 1st. Thank you.
This will accomplish three things. It will allow you to think, get your composure, and allow you to give a level response. Remember, the court reporter is taking everything down verbatim. What we've talked about so far have been some of the mental preparations for your deposition. There are, however, some very basic preparations you should make. Now let's move into a deposition and explore some of the things we've talked about thus far. In this case, Mrs. Jones was driving her car toward an intersection. Halfway through the intersection, her car is hit. The opposing lawyer is taking Mrs. Jones' deposition and is attempting to show that she was at fault because she failed to properly watch as she entered the intersection.
As you approached the intersection, was there anything that blocked your view?
I had just pulled out the lighter for my cigarette and was tuning the radio when I saw the car.
Oh, you were smoking?
Yeah, I smoke a little, but I'm trying to quit. In fact, I was on my way to the doctor's.
Oh, were you sick?
I didn't say I was sick.
Well, what was the name?
I was completely over the flu.
The doctor's name.
And I had been off medication for 2 days. I wasn't drowsy the day of the wreck.
Several bad things have just happened and she may have blown her case. She got mad and she argued. Now the opposing attorney knows he can rattle her in front of the jury. She interrupted the question and guessed what he was asking. And most importantly, she volunteered information. Now let's take a closer look. First of all, what did the question ask? Was there anything that blocked your view of the intersection?
I had just pulled out the lighter for my cigarette and was tuning the radio when I saw the car.
Oh, you were smoking?
Yeah, I smoke a little, but I'm trying to quit. In fact, I was on my way to the doctor's.
Oh, were you sick?
It didn't ask about smoking. It didn't ask about the radio. It didn't ask about doctors. And it didn't ask about illness.
I didn't say I was sick.
Well, what was the name?
I was completely over the flu.
The doctor's name.
And I had been off medication for 2 days. I wasn't drowsy the day of the wreck.
It did not ask about medication or the effect of medication, all of which was volunteered. Let's see how it should have been handled.
Now, as you approached the intersection, was there anything that blocked your view?
No, sir, there wasn't.
Now, did you see the car before you entered the intersection?
Yes, sir, I did.
So why did you go through the intersection?
She had the stop sign and she was slowing down, so I assumed she would stop.
No. Were you drinking or under the influence of any medication that day?
No, sir, I wasn't.
You notice that she answered the questions honestly and thoughtfully. She did not interrupt.
Now, as you approached the intersection, was there anything that blocked your view?
No, sir, there wasn't.
Now, did you see the car before you entered the intersection?
Yes, sir, I did.
She didn't anticipate the questions. She didn't get angry. She answered only the questions asked and did not volunteer information that was not asked for.
Were you drinking or under the influence of any medication that day?
No, sir, I wasn't.
Now, as you can tell, it is extremely important that you listen very carefully to the questions that are presented to you. Again, there are several rules of thumb that you should keep in mind as your deposition is being taken. First of all, you may not know the answer to a question.
Sir, what is the average time to put up a precast building?
I couldn't say.
Well, do you know, sir, how much time you will be required to be at that building site?
I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with not knowing the answer to a question. Simply tell the attorney that you don't know. Some witnesses think that it's a sign of ignorance if you don't know the answer. Well, that's hardly the case. You can only do harm if you guess an answer. Likewise, your opposition attorney will undoubtedly ask you a question that doesn't make any sense. There's nothing wrong with not understanding a question. Simply say, "I'm sorry, would you rephrase that question?"
Sir, did you understand the penalty clause for late completion of a building would be offset by the act of God, strike, and war clauses?
I'm sorry, would you rephrase your question?
Okay, there are three types of questions about which you need to be especially careful. The first is a compound question. A compound question is one in which your opposing lawyer puts two or more questions together and where most of the question can be answered with a simple answer, but part of the question is wrong. Take a look.
Sir, did you understand that weather could impact the completion date and that if the union went on strike, the penalty clause was void and the contract itself was subject to the availability of rebar steel?
Yes. Yes.
Your instinct is to be agreeable, even though part of the answer is wrong. Unfortunately, if you answer the question with a simple yes or no, you will be bound not only to the part that is right, but also to the part that is wrong. Frankly, the other lawyer may be doing this deliberately to entrap you.
Sir, did you understand that weather could impact the completion date and that if the union went on strike, the penalty clause was void? The contract itself was subject to the availability of rebar steel.
I really don't understand the question. It seems like there's more than one question here. Would you mind breaking it up a little bit so I can understand it? I'll be happy to answer it for you.
Now, the second situation. Watch out for the question that assumes facts that are not true.
Sir, could you tell me, how did you decide to deal with the fact that McNeil Construction Company was being sought to build many buildings and that you would be keeping them from securing other profitable contracts?
That wasn't important.
He just agreed to facts that weren't true. Now, here's the proper way to handle this fake premise question.
Sir, could you tell me, how did you decide to deal with the fact that McNeil Construction was being sought after to build many buildings and that you might be keeping them from securing other profitable contracts?
I don't believe it's proper to say that McNeil Construction was being sought after to build many buildings. Would you please rephrase the question?
Okay, the third situation occurs after all the questions have been completed. The opposing lawyer may attempt to get you to agree with a summary of your testimony.
On December 1st, I signed the contract with McNeil Construction. Then on February 18th, I signed the contract with Johnson Metal Buildings.
Oh, so you were aware that you entered into two contractual agreements that were both mutually exclusive?
No, that's not what I'm saying. On December 1st, I signed the contract with McNeil Construction. Then on February 18th, I signed the contract with Johnson Metal Buildings.
Never let the other lawyer put words in your mouth. Let's demonstrate what we're talking about. In this case, Mr. Thompson is being sued for divorce by his wife. Mr. Thompson owns a small dry cleaning business which he has operated for the past 10 years. Mrs. Thompson's attorney is attempting to establish that the business is doing extremely well and will continue to enjoy growth.
How many trucks did you have in your laundry business when it started 10 years ago?
2.
And how many does it have today?
4.
How many employees did you have originally?
5.
And how many do you have today?
10.
And this rapid expansion in your company occurred because of your education and the new technology that you brought in and the heavy growth of population in that area.
I guess so.
Well, you certainly have plans to open up several stores within the next 5 years.
I guess so.
So in summary, Mr. Thompson, over the last 10 years, your company has expanded dramatically, having more than doubled its fleet of trucks and its employees, and your company will more than double its location and employees within the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, I suppose so.
As you can tell, Mr. Thompson has been trapped into testifying about things that simply aren't true. The lawyer has put words into his mouth by asking a compound question. In addition, the lawyer asked a question that assumes facts that aren't true, namely that the business had rapidly expanded.
And this rapid expansion in your company occurred because of your education and the new technology that you brought in and the heavy growth of population in that area.
I guess so.
Well, you certainly have plans to open up several stores within the next 5 years.
I guess so.
So in summary, Mr. Thompson, over the last 10 years, your company has expanded dramatically, having more than doubled its fleet of trucks and its employees, and your company will more than double its location and employees within the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, I suppose so.
How should you avoid these traps? Let's watch.
How many trucks did you have in your laundry business when it started 10 years ago?
2.
How many does it have today?
4.
And how many employees did you have originally?
5.
And how many do you have today?
10.
And this rapid expansion in your company occurred because of your education and the new technology that you brought in and the heavy growth of population in that area.
No, I never said we had a rapid expansion in my business. Quite the contrary. The activities that we have done have merely allowed us to net the same over the years due to new competition.
Oh, I see. Well, you do intend to double your location and employees within the next 5 years.
No, ma'am.
Are you denying that's what you told your wife?
I told her that certain expansion would be necessary in the future to allow us to hold on to our current margin.
So in summary, Mr. Thompson, over the last years, your company has expanded dramatically, having more than doubled in fleet of trucks and employees. And your company plans to more than double itself again in location and employees within the next 5 years.
No. My company's expansion in the past have been merely to meet the demands of new competitors and their technology. And these activities have not increased the profitability of the business. In fact, the percentage of profit is dramatically down. And it's too early to speculate.
So remember, don't let the opposition attorney put words in your mouth. And don't let the lawyer get away with making you answer several questions in one.
And this rapid expansion in your company occurred because of your education and the new technology that you brought in and the heavy growth of population in that area.
No, I never said we had a rapid expansion in my business. Quite the contrary. The activities that we have done have merely allowed us to net the same over the years due to new competition.
Now, there are some other concepts we need to talk about. In answering questions in a deposition, don't characterize your testimony. By that I mean phrases like honestly, and I'm doing the best I can, or in all candor, are not appropriate.
Sir, tell me, were you aware that my client's construction company was in great demand?
No.
And did it occur to you at all that the construction company might turn down other jobs to take your job?
No, it didn't. Honestly, it didn't.
If you start out an answer with the word honestly, is the court and jury to believe that the rest of your testimony was not honest? Of course not. These are figures of speech which you may use in everyday life, but they are not appropriate for a deposition.
Sir, can you tell me, have you ever been part of a construction program before?
No, never.
Likewise, try to avoid words like never and always. If the lawyer asks you if you've ever done a certain act and you say never, the lawyer will be able to attack your credibility if one exception is found.
Sir, have you ever been part of a construction program before?
I don't think so, but it's hard to remember sitting here. Perhaps you have a document that maybe could refresh my memory. That might help.
So as you can see, it's better to realize your memory might